Hey, Chris.
Can you hear me?
I can. There we
Okay.
go. How's
Thanks.
your day going?
Good. Thanks for willing to do this.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, the stuff I had in mind, I really hadn't seen you be asked before or talk about, so that's what made me interested.
That's really cool. That's so smart of you.
So I can just kind of jump around then in terms of roles, and I know, of course, how you got started in that. Like your first role was Pokemon, but do you remember what your second role would have been?
My second role, well, I did a bunch of the second role would have been commercial stuff. As soon as I
Oh,
figured
okay.
out there was a thing called voiceover, I just got myself out there doing everything I could. And then from there, well, the next role was my Valentine in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
Um, I think there were a bunch of other shows at Four Kids Productions. One of them was Ultraman Tiga,
Yep.
which I hear they're redoing or someone's redoing. But I that was live action, and I voiced Captain Iruma,
Hmm.
and it was a very deep voice. I had to keep getting away from the lighter characters that I did in Pokemon. And I was the captain of a ship. This was the closest to anything like Star Trek I ever got to do.
Right.
Um, yeah, because it was live action and I was the captain. So I actually really loved doing that. And then there was another show called Ultimate Muscle.
Yep.
Um, and I think my character was Trixie, but that might have been Lisa Ortiz. We'll have to ask her.
Okay. Okay.
So that was a smaller role in a really fun show. No one talks about Ultimate Muscle. There must have been like no fans.
Well, I actually do remember like seeing it on TV back then. So
Oh, good. Okay,
yeah.
awesome.
I know one of like more earlier anime roles. If you remember being in Madara or Weathering Continent.
No. Sorry. What's it called? Madara?
Yeah, you were the female lead.
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay.
Here's my phone. Madara.
Yeah,
I love this. This is going right on my resume unless it's a mistake. Madara.
because I was on Anime News Network.
Huh. That's how they get you. Wow. I don't know. I do not see it. But get wait, let me look at one more thing.
Okay.
Who do you know anything else about it?
Yeah, the male lead was Ted Lewis.
Oh, Ted. That makes sense. If Ted was in it, he was another regular over at Four Kids. So that makes total sense that I would have done that as well. I'm sorry, I don't remember it.
And the other one, Weathering Continent, that was Veronica Taylor, Jamie McGonigal, and Mark Dreisen.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. Again, another more team members
Right.
from a really crazy time. We were all like voiceover babies together.
Well, I know. I'm sure there had to be some story about it being in his and her circumstances.
Oh, that was the best. That was super fun. You said you broke up a little bit. You said you know a story about it?
Oh, I was going to ask if there was a story about that one.
Well, I loved that. That was the first time I got to play a young kid.
Yeah.
So immediately I was all in. I had so much fun. Like every session was a pleasure. Um, but the best was when Jessica Calvello called me and said there's these interstitials where someone it's like a preview and someone announces what's coming up next. And she said, so I get it from her, my fellow voice actor, not the director or producer. She said, we're supposed to record it. Do you want to dress up and do silly things? And I was like, yes, I am all in. So I just I packed up a bunch of random stuff. I had day jobs when I was in New York. I worked in theater. I worked for an opera company. Like I was always working in the offices there. But I had like, crazy friends and access to random bits of costumes that I'd held on to over the years. So I just packed up everything I could think of that was a little bit odd. And we were at some like studio in upstate New York. And yeah, I just followed Jessica's lead. She's like, now we're going to tie animals to our heads and be like, emergency food supply, emergency food supply. I don't know where that came from. I just assumed it was a thing that anime people knew. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But that was amazing. And then Veronica Taylor, because she was the lead in that, she was like, let's have a special screening and pizza party. Let's have like an opening night party.
Oh, yeah.
Where we all get together and watch, the first few episodes. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds like so much fun. Not realizing like that they were going to project in front of all these people this insane preview stuff that Jessica and I had done. And like, as soon as I saw it on a big screen, I was just like, what did we do? And the worst of it was the producer and Jessica and I all got really tired by the end. So I feel so bad that the previews at the end were not nearly as imaginative. We went from like, wow, we are hilarious and having fun to like, all right, coming up next for anybody who's still with us.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. So that's my his and hers circumstances experience.
Okay.
It truly makes me happy every time I think about that show.
And do you know anything about, because nobody's ever really talked about who the male lead was in that show, Christopher Nicholas?
Oh, no, I don't know who that is.
Okay.
It's an anime. I'm sure you know that we record by ourselves a lot of the time. So no, I don't know who that is. You mean it's a mystery?
Well, like he had other credits, but he's never like been on camera or anything like that, or so.
Huh, that's interesting.
Well, and I know at that same time, obviously, Liam O'Brien and Crispin Freeman were in the area and coming up. Were you friends with them too?
Not until I moved to LA. And
okay.
Then when I was asking people like, who's here? And more than one person said, oh, you can see Liam when you're out there. You'll see Liam. And I was like, okay. And I can't remember how we did finally meet, but we hit it off. And Crispin, I had met at a convention when I first started doing Pokemon. And I was invited to a convention when I had no idea what conventions were and what was going on. I was like a deer in the headlights through this whole experience. And they put me on a panel with Crispin. And that's when I figured out that Crispin was like the rock star of anime.
Yeah.
So I just sat there like, what are we doing? Like, what is this world?
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to Crispin. I learned a bunch. And at one point, Crispin was like, you should ask Megan a question. And I was like, no, I don't know nearly as much as you do. But yeah, that was the first time like someone said, well, what manga do you want to see turned into anime? And I was like, what's manga? And is Pokemon anime? Like I still was that new in the world. So again, I learned a lot from Crispin. He's an amazing actor.
Mm-hmm. I know more other roles that would have been New York based would have been Lemmy and Two Heart.
I just remember that she exists. Someone brought a Lemmy poster to a convention I did recently. And I was like, oh my God, now I remember her, but I could not do the voice for you.
Okay.
I'm assuming that was one of the, maybe it's The Right Stuff. Because I did a lot of work for them. I'm looking at Lemmy. This is so cool. All right. Who else did I do that I don't remember?
Well, I was just going to say, would your first video game role would have been in Valkyrie Profile?
Oh my God, Valkyrie Profile. That was epic. I love Valkyrie Profile. Yeah, that was my first game. And I mean, what can I say? I love Lenneth. I loved her power and her softness at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, I'm still really proud of Valkyrie Profile. Again, that's another one where I heard someone's going to redo it.
Yep.
And usually when redos happen, they go with a new cast. So that'll be hard. That'll be hard to be displaced as Lenneth. But as they say in Casablanca, we'll always have Paris. I'll always be the original Lenneth, no matter what happens.
Right. Yeah, it's cool to see.
Again, I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, it's cool to see people like still commenting on your post about it.
Right? It's so awesome. It's so awesome.
Let's see there. Yeah, of course you got to come back in Shaman King too.
Yes, that was super fun. I told them though, I said, it's been years since I've done this, because they said they asked my agent if I would do that, and if I thought after all this time I could still do the voice. I was like, yes, I can. Like, I just said yes. Like, of course I can. Who do you think you are? Ask me if I can still do the voice. But then I realized I didn't remember what the voice was. So I asked my agent to say, can you tell them that I'm going to need a reference, just so I can, if it's really important to match what happened, then I really need to hear it so I can make sure that I adjust, which is true. Like, it's true if it's a new character that I haven't done for a few weeks, that they'll play a reference just so I can like fully get my head around it. And they said, we don't have a reference, but we have a really good director. I was like, okay. But luckily when I saw the character again, because I couldn't find anything, I finally found a DVD, but I couldn't get it in time for my session. But I couldn't find anything online. And so when I finally got there and heard the character, I was like, oh my gosh, I know what I did for this. Like it came back like that.
Okay.
So yeah, that was super cool and super fun that they redid it and let us old classic voice actors come back for it. That was awesome.
It does make me just think to ask now, what is the case where you've had to alter your voice the most for a role?
Probably the little kid voices.
Okay.
I mean, in a way it's effortless because it's just about shifting to a different place in my head.
But after a while, like if I'm doing it for an hour or so, the kids grow up really fast because I get tired.
Yeah.
I remember doing a little boy's voice in, I think it was Fighting Foodons.
Oh yeah.
And Jim, the director's like, you're starting to sound like Harvey Firestein, because he was turning out more like this. He's like, he's a kid. He's not an old man.
Okay, he's a little boy.
That is one thing I do like to ask voice actresses specifically, that certain people I've talked to always have a particular process for boy voices. Is there something that you do, or does it just depend on the character?
You know what is, I will admit this, is listening to Veronica Taylor.
Okay.
She's so good at it.
Yeah.
She manages to find, like, she really sources real kids. I can be accused of being too cartoony, which, I mean, it's always the actor's job to be real at the same time. So listening to her is like, it's like a touchstone. If I can even come close to what she does, I'm in good shape. But technically for a boy voice,
I go higher, and then you add a little bit of scratch, and that's where I get into trouble because I start to age up
pretty quickly. I know what I have to keep away from is if it's an older boy, I immediately do Jeff Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So it's Sean Penn, like, Dad, are we going out today? And they're like, not a surfer, not a surfer. And I'm like, okay. So I stick with little boys. Like literally when I've had checklists where they're like, what kind of characters do you do? And I usually try to skip teen boys and teen girls. I can do the little ones and I can do the ones who are like my age, but the teens, I always end up sounding too old. Yeah, I think a bratty, sassy 13-year-old girl I can do, but like 15, 16, that's where my range hits the road.
And in terms of long running characters, do you think that you relate more to Shizune, Mai, or Rangiku?
I mean, personally, I relate more to Shizune in terms of like the forgotten assistant. I work really hard, like in all my day jobs and as a parent, like chasing after people and being unappreciated. That makes it sound like I really feel sorry for myself, but I just relate in many ways to her long-standing being number 2 with Lady Tsunade. But certainly who I want to be is Rangiku. I want to be like ass-kicking Soul Reaper.
And with Rangiku, what's the like darkest emotional headspace you've had to get into?
Well, her whole storyline with Gin about like former childhood friend, childhood love, that was probably the deepest. Yeah, that was really a powerful piece. Although there were a couple things, like in the very beginning, this was one where until I got in the right headspace, because I thought Bleach was like something silly, and the director was like, no, this is real, this is scary, this is dark, real, scary, and dark. So yeah, that took me a while to kind of wrap my head around, but once I did, I was like, wow, I'm exhausted. This is like real theater acting.
Right.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I love Bleach.
Yep. And going back to the timeline, when you did move to LA, what was the first any kind of voice role that you got in anything?
The first thing I got was oh golly, I don't even remember the name of it. I had like 2 lines, and there was a guy named Kevin who since passed away. He thought it would be funny to cast me. Yes, thank you. Kevin Seymour thought it would be funny to cast me as a nurse in a different show. He's just like, this is the work you've done before, come in and be a nurse. And I was like, great. I think that might be the first time I met Michelle Ruff too, because my role was so small, they brought me in like to do that and Walla. And so there were a couple other people in the booth at the same time. We were all working together.
Okay.
So that was my first job. And then I started working for, a couple other anime people all at the same time. I did get to do a crazy show called Daphne and the Brilliant Blue.
All right.
That's that I don't talk about very often. That Sam Riegel directed that. And we just had a really good time. Like Sam and I, we kind of knew each other in New York, but we got to be better friends in LA. And Daphne and the Brilliant Blue was so crazy. That was just insane. And my character was just wild and loud and obnoxious, and I loved her. And at one point we were just trying to match Flap, and Sam was like, just say ha ha and ha, because it matched. And I was like, okay, ha ha and ha. And he goes, and then it came up a little bit later, we had something else to fill in. He goes, I think that's your catchphrase. We're going to use that whenever we don't know what else to say. So I think that might have been the first time, maybe the only time I had a character with a catchphrase.
Okay.
Which is not even words. Ha ha and ha. I should start using it again.
What about with a gun sword?
Nope.
That's okay.
I'm sure it happened. I'm sure it happened. I'm sure I was really good in it.
Or
Or not.
Fafner?
Fafner, I do remember kind of. I think it just sounds familiar.
Okay.
Wait, was I Hildy in Fafner? No, that was something else.
No, Canon.
No.
Okay.
What else do you got?
DRS.
Is that how you say it? It's not Deers. It's DRS.
I don't know, actually. It might be Deers.
I know. I do remember Deers. I was Neneko. I was like the nerdy friend, and I have a action figure of me.
Okay,
It's one of the few things I have an action figure of.
Yeah.
Still no Funko Pop. Funko. I'm watching you, Funko.
So what is the story with Higurashi?
Oh, Higurashi.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that show so much. That was so much fun to work on because no one told me it was a horror piece. I got to be a little kid, which I love, like a bratty little kid. There's nothing more fun. And then all of a sudden, my character was pulling out her sister's fingernails. I was like, what is this? Oh, before that, they kept talking about the cotton drifting festival. And then all of a sudden I told another character that the cotton drifting actually meant like murdering someone and pulling out their entrails.
Right.
And I remember looking at the director and being like, what? She's like, yep. And I said, well, you could have warned a girl that this was going to happen. So I pulled out my sister's fingernails and I was surprised. Surprise, today you get to pull out someone's fingernails. So I ended up loving those characters. It is the only horror piece I've ever done. Not because I'm opposed to horror, but so far that's my only opportunity. And it was unsettling.
Well, because that's what I was going to ask. Even beyond that, how much darker and intense things go with Mion and Shion. What did you have to do like to get into that process?
You know, getting into it wasn't hard, just using the visuals from it, you know, just reading the story and watching the visuals. It just kind of took me to a certain place. And that's another one where the script is good enough that if I just follow the dialogue and the images, I'm right there. They made it really easy on me. The hard part was getting out of it,
right.
Like shaking that off. And that's when working with an amazing director and a fun engineer, like that really saved me, you know, like I've definitely had experiences with not bad directors or anything, but just people we didn't vibe, you know. And I go home being like, did I read that right? Do you think he really meant it when he said that was okay? I should have asked to do it one more time, just because there's not as much communication. And so I'm not like, I don't have as much feedback. Well, I have feedback, but I don't know. It's hard to describe. When I'm working with a director that we really know each other and we get each other, then I guess I just trust that if I screw something up big, they'll let me know and not be afraid of letting me know. And we can laugh at the end. You know, that's right. We all have stuff we do to let off steam, right? And to save us. And mine is humor. I don't know, which is true of a lot of actors. Like being funny helps let off steam and take you away from the extreme discomfort of doing a horror piece. You know, being able to laugh about it helps create distance.
And do you always find something that you relate to in characters, regardless of how intense it is?
I'm trying to think if I related personally to Mion and Shion. I can always relate to feelings, what makes a character exuberant, then I bring my own exuberance to that. So no matter what the character's going through, I can always relate to that. But their personal circumstances and the things they actually want out of life, not so much. Playing characters that are cruel and vengeful to one another, like what I have to do is, you can't really play mean. Like mean isn't, nobody thinks they're mean. So I have to find like either the joy in what they're doing or the self-righteousness, the anger. Like there has to be some feelings that resonate or a drive that resonates. Otherwise it's just it's distant and a little more like going through the motions.
I did want to bring up the Tales series because I know that you've gotten to play multiple characters, but I would think that the most attachment would be with Sheena.
Which one is she?
She's the ninja.
Do her voice. No, the Tales one, there's one who we're talking about Tales of Vesperia and all that.
Yeah.
There was one who is younger and poutier, and I'm blanking on her name, but that's the one I always think about.
Philia?
Maybe.
Good green hair.
I need to rewatch all this.
Oh, okay. So like, moving on to Eureka 7.
Oh yeah. I that one I do remember, and that was another one that I was like, this is like Star Trek. This is awesome.
Yep.
Just because characters on traveling to other planets and stuff like that. And I know what to say. I had a really good time. I did that at Bang Zoom, I think, with Tony Oliver.
Yep.
And I like that one. It was a good show that I felt like they were doing really professionally. Like they were doing a good job with it. I hope I did too.
I know at the same time that would have been when you were in the first Fate Stay Night series as Bediver, like Saber's assistant knight.
Oh, thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know I was in the first one. Actually, I did know, because when they called me back again, I was like, wait, should I remember what I was doing? Because I'm going to need to be reminded. And then it was as Caster instead.
Right. And what are your thoughts on Caster then? Just her character?
Oh my God, Caster's awesome.
Yeah.
Devilish, deliciously devilish. And then, but in that case, motivated by real pain and a real backstory. But she was yummy. It was hard not to see her eyes. There was definitely enough to go on, but that was one where I wished we could have seen more of her face.
Ergo Proxy, that's one of your...
I loved Ergo Proxy.
Yeah.
That's one I need to watch again just because I loved it so much. I was looking at pictures of it recently, and I was just like, wow, this was such a cool show. And Rael is so badass. And I remember I was teaching yoga at the same time, and I would, I was just trying to make a buck, right? So I would run in like in my yoga clothes. I was having a really hard time with clicking then. I don't know if I just wasn't drinking enough water. So I was trying all these crazy things like aloe vera juice. I was convinced aloe vera juice was helping. Maybe that was it. Maybe it was making it worse. But you know what clicking is? Like when there's weird little mouth noises. So, and what works is what everybody advises. It's green apples. Green apples takes it away. Green apples and water. Green apples and water. I was just working on a lot of stuff, trying to be the best actor I could, trying to show up and be a pro. And I think I did it with Rael. I really worked hard on that technically and, from an emotional point of view. Do
you think that she's your favorite primary character that you've played then in terms of like a central?
She might be. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, definitely one of them. And I want to look like her. I want to wear a little cat ear hair and blue eyeshadow all the time.
And one role that totally you wouldn't have expected from you was in Gurren Lagann, like the role that you played in that.
Yeah, that was different for me. It's so funny. You're saying things. I'm like, yeah, now that you mention it. I don't have a lot of memories of the when we recorded it, but I do know that character because I can picture her. She was something.
Central character of Valletta in Code Geass.
Yes, she's awesome. She's hot. Yeah, and she was just back when I was, and she's not as hot.
Yeah.
She's not as powerful as she once was, so that was kind of disappointing. But yeah, Valletta's cool, and that was such a great story. I loved all of that.
Oh, I did just want to ask too, what made the change to move from LA for you?
To leave LA?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very boring. My husband got a job here in Nashville. Okay. And over COVID, I turned my home studio into a professional studio. Like I had just done auditions from home in the past. I didn't think I had a good enough setup, but I very quickly learned what I needed to do. I bought a secondhand booth from someone who was selling it off of Craigslist, and it's turned out to be amazing. My neighbor loved using his leaf blower. That was his hobby. And he would do it like every day at random times, and I couldn't hear it from inside the booth. So I was like, okay, I can do this. And we had good internet, and I worked from home. So I was like, when my husband got offered this job, I was like, I think I can still work. So let's give it a try. Mm-hmm. So far, I'm in a funky Airbnb and haven't been able to set up my booth, but in a couple of weeks, so we'll be in a permanent place and I'll rebuild. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's the one good thing that COVID did, was give people the chance to work from home. Right. And I mean, it's good and bad. Like I'm grateful that I can still work, but I miss people. Mm-hmm. I work better when I can see people.
And this is probably obvious to ask, but are you still actively working in anime then since moving?
I haven't. Well, Pokemon. I'm still on Pokemon.
Yep.
Which has been awesome. Like it's really good. I love working with Lisa Ortiz. That's been a really positive experience. And I've done work like on games and stuff, like as just small pieces. Mm-hmm. So I can't say I've done any interesting work. I mean, Pokemon Journeys is definitely interesting, but there's no other titles that I'm super excited about. I'm excited about everything I work on, but like, I can't be like, I'm the lead in this, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And just little background noises here and there.
And I did want to bring up what your experience was being in Sailor Moon, because I know that you got to play some monsters and stuff.
I was a monster. Yep, yeah. Totally. Just fun, great director. Susie Goldish, who I worked with in New York. It was actually, I'm embarrassed to admit it, I had never seen Sailor Moon. So It was my first time seeing it. And I was like, oh, I get it. I get why people like this. This is super cool. Mm-hmm. It also felt like my character, maybe because she was so monstery, it felt like Scooby-Doo. Felt like an episode of Scooby-Doo. Like I was the monster and I got exposed and blah, blah. But it was cool. And my kids, after I did that, I was like, hey, I exposed my kids to it and they really like it.
Okay, so both your kids, or however many kids you have, are they all in the anime then?
A little bit. I have two daughters, and they're one's really into Pokemon and one's into Sailor Moon. Okay. And they both watched the original Winx Club, which I wasn't a part of, but my friends are. So I got a little street cred for knowing people in that.
And was there ever any aspiration for you, like even while you were still doing voice work and you moved to LA, to try to pursue on-camera stuff?
Yeah, I thought I would. I thought that was the plan. I was like,
Mm.
well, what I'm really gonna do is blah blah. But you know what? I got I won't say lazy. It's just like um my desires changed.
Right.
There was there's a lot of ego in wanting to be an actress, a lot of wanting to prove something. And I just, I've done a lot of work in other parts of my life. Like, I don't want to be all like, I don't want to take us too far down a path, but spiritually, I've had a lot of growing to do.
Mhm.
And once I say once I did that, I'm still doing it. Just the drive to acting became less intense. I also did some just auditions, like on camera commercial auditions. And I was surprised by how cliche it was, like a bunch of other actors in the room eyeing each other like nervously, like as if we were all competition. And for whatever reason, that's not what happens in voiceover. In voiceover, there's really a sense of, with the tide rise all boats. And I was pretty clear that I wasn't having fun going to all these commercial auditions, and it just wasn't right for me.
Right.
So I never really, I didn't actually pursue screen work. I could see at a time when I'm not so busy with my family, I think I would like to go back to theater, because
Okay.
I had some of the best times of my life doing that. So yeah, so that could happen in the future.
And is there still a role in anime that you like hope to play at some point, or?
I'm a huge fan of Studio Ghibli, so
Oh, yeah.
I would love to work. I know, in whatever form it continues to take, I would love to be able to work with them one day. And I want to be on one of the Star Wars or Star Trek shows. That's and that's just like that would just be a hoot.
The way that I end every interview I do is asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, I already have what I want, which is that I get to make people happy. When people, especially when they talk about Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and how it affected their lives. I mean, I couldn't even imagine doing something that would change people's lives in the way that they've described to me. So, yeah, I want to be part of shows that make people happy.
Well, thanks. I'm glad that we finally got to do this.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure, Chris. All right, have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Bye.